Hi, my name is Mia. I'm a knitter and crocheter based in Scotland, and today I thought I would do kind of a flash my stash video. Weirdly, the last couple of video ideas I have had have come out at like the exact same time as Amy from Knee Knits. I'm not copying, we're just clearly very much on the same page just now. I planned this video and then I saw hers come out, but I figured I would still do mine because it still feels like a fun idea. So I'm just going to go through the stash that I have at the moment, if I have any plans associated with it, that kind of thing. If you have any ideas for the wool and yarn that I don't have ideas for, please share them with me because some of these things I am kind of stumped on what to do with. But yeah, I'll go through like sock yarn, swatcher quantity, and then kind of just the weird odds and ends. And if you have any ideas for those, please do share. So I'm going to start with the sock yarn because that should be nice and easy. The first yarn that I have is 3 balls of West Yorkshire Spinners 4-ply, the signature 4-ply. So I've got that in the self-striping colour Owl. I have used their self-striping colours Mallard and Wood Pigeon before, but I haven't used the Owl one yet. There's a lot of kind of greys, browns, blues, that kind of thing. So I feel like it'll be very woodsy and the stripes should come out really cool. No idea who I'm going to make socks for yet with this, but it was just one of those, like, I had a gift card from my brother's girlfriend and was like, this is speaking to me, so picked up this colour. At the same time, I picked up the colour Cherry Drop. This to me is a kind of true raspberry colour, so I'm not sure I fully agree with the name, but it is a stunning kind of pinky reddish colour. It's coming up very bright on camera. It's not quite that bright in person, but it is just a lovely kind of pinkish red tone. I would really like to try and make some kind of lace socks with these. I don't know what exactly, but I just think with tonals it makes sense to do that sort of thing. I've actually never made a pair of socks with a tonal yarn before. I've always done either self-striping or variegated, so I'm very excited to see kind of how my stitches show up when there's not something to distract from it, like if they're actually that neat or if I'm just getting away with it, so we'll see. And my last West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply is this beautiful colour. It's called Nutmeg. I am so excited to make socks with this. I think it is absolutely stunning. It's just the beautiful kind of rusty orange colour, right up my street. I'd really like to make the Petal Drop socks by Florence Miller or Handmade by Florence with these. I do have the pattern already, so this is 100% going on my needles at some point this year. But I'm so pleased with this colour. I'm so ready to cast this on. This will definitely be the next pair of socks that I make once I've finished my current ones. And the last sort of sock yarn that I've got, like definitely for socks, is actually a hand spun yarn that I got at an agricultural show with my fiance. So this is called Dragon Breath and it is by MidgePorterDesigns. So she does have an Etsy shop under MidgePorterDesign. If you're a fan of the look of this kind of yarn, please do check her out. I'm so excited about all the different colours in this. I haven't decided yet if I want to do the grey, because I feel like there's so many lovely warm tones. There are some cooler tones in the orange, but I would just kind of like to let them speak for themselves. I feel like maybe the grey in a sock could make them look dirty quite quickly because it's on the heels, but I haven't decided yet, so that's kind of up in the air. This I have not decided on a pattern for. I think it will probably again be a sort of simple sock. Like I really like the Everyday Socks by the Crazy Sock Lady, so it might be those, just something simple that lets all of these beautiful variegated colours speak for themselves, because there are so many different tones in this yarn. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I wouldn't want to kind of muddy that with a pattern. So this is the last sock yarn that I've got specifically to make socks with. So the next category I'm going to go into is more fingering weight yarn, but this is more kind of sweater quantities, things that I usually have plans for, but it's still fingering weight. So the first is this yarn. You might recognise it if you saw my last video. This is the third ball that I was talking about in that video, if you did. But this is a fingering weight one of a kind bunch of skeins from NervusFibre based in Glasgow. So I think I'm still going to make the toasted tee with that. I'm pretty set on that idea. I still haven't decided if it's going to be the fingering weight version or the DK, but I just thought the colours in this were too pretty to pass up. And the toasted tee is one of those patterns that should help this kind of yarn to speak for itself. Again, I love variegated yarns, and I love finding patterns that just kind of do it justice. Like, you just look at the variegated yarn and all of the different colours in it and let that be the thing about the piece that makes it special, not like lace or cables or anything like that. Not that I've ventured into the world of cables yet. Maybe that's on 2025's roster. It's not on this year. But yeah, this is hopefully going to be my summer project this year. I just think these colours are insane. They're so pretty. And I'm very excited to cast it on. So the next fingering weight sweater quantity I have is actually one that I haven't shown on here yet. And it is the first time I have purchased from this brand as well. This is the Knitting for Olive Merino and also their soft silk Mohair, and they are both in the colour Putty. Putty is a colour I have heard so many amazing things about, and I absolutely have jumped on the hype train because I just think it's such a lovely neutral. I don't know if it suits my skin tone, but I'm kind of one of those people that doesn't really care. I know a lot of people get really into their colour theory and what colour suits them and the like different seasons sort of thing, like if you're a deep winter or whatever. I haven't looked into it because I just kind of like to wear the colours that make me happy, and if I found out that a colour that I love to wear didn't suit me, I'd be a little bit heartbroken. So I'm not even going to look into it. I kind of don't want to know. I'm enjoying the blissful ignorance kind of thing. But yeah, this is my first time purchasing from Knitting for Olive. I can already tell that when these are held together they are going to be so soft, and I'm really excited about it. And my plan for this is to make the April cardigan. So that's a petite knit pattern that doesn't call for these yarns, but I'm sure it was actually Florence Miller again that I saw make the April cardigan using this sort of combination, and it just looked so lovely that I kind of had to try it. So I've noticed their mohair has a lot less of a halo to it than the Drops Kid Silk mohair. That's the only mohair I can compare it to. I've used the alpaca Surrey silk before, but I've only used the Drops Kid Silk mohair. So this feels like it's going to be a lot nicer to work with and a lot nicer to wear. I sometimes think the halo is just a bit excessive in the Drops Kid Silk mohair, so the fact that this doesn't have as crazy of a halo makes me feel quite positive about this. So I'm very excited to cast this on, but it's kind of on the back burner for me just now. The next sweater I'm going to make is definitely going to be for my fiance rather than myself, because I've never made one for someone else and I think now's the time. So this is kind of on the back burner, but they had a sale recently that I wanted to make the most of, so that's why this is sitting ready to go in my stash. So while I'm talking about the sweater for my fiance, I guess it makes sense to talk about the yarn that I've got for that, which is the Tynn Pure Gynt by Sandnes Garn. So this is in the colours 5575 and 1002. So it's kind of a navy and a sort of cream neutral that I'm going to hold together for the mélange sweater. Also petite knit pattern. Again, I think all of her patterns look so lovely. I've totally been influenced. But that's one that I really like the look of. It's kind of simple in construction, but it looks lovely because of the colours that you hold together for it. So I think that's kind of a good way of making it look handmade and making him something that he couldn't buy from the shops, but it's not so difficult that I'm likely to mess it up, because that is a concern still. So I'm really excited to cast this on, hopefully later in the year. This could be like my autumn winter project. I don't like making sweaters in the summer because I feel like I'm working under a blanket in the hottest time of year. That doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, this is a 100% Norwegian wool, which also gives me a little bit less leeway than making mistakes than like a mohair blend, because it doesn't hide it as much. I don't have the kind of fluffy halo, but I don't love the way that looks on men's jumpers so much. I don't know why, I just feel like it looks a bit strange. So I felt like I would just go for a 100% wool for that reason. Hopefully I'll be able to get away with it because of the way the colours blend together. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, this is another one sitting in my stash that hopefully I will get around to this year. Okay, now moving on to the DK yarn. I've only got one sort of sweater's quantity of this sitting in my stash, and I have no idea what to do with it. I've actually had a couple of false starts with this yarn where I've started making a pattern and then just found myself kind of not continuing with it. So I have quite a few balls of this Paintbox Baby DK. It's pretty much a 50-50 split between acrylic and nylon. Yeah, 45-55 acrylic to nylon. And it's quite a light DK. It's really soft, which obviously you would expect from a baby DK. But my brother bought me it for Christmas a few years ago, and I think he got me like 8 or 10 balls, and I've tried a couple of times to start making something with it and just didn't love the way that they were turning out. So if you have any pattern recommendations for like a light DK, bright coloured pattern, please shoot them my way, because I have no idea what to do with this, and because it was a gift I want to make sure that whatever I make with it actually gets used. So yeah, this is sitting in my stash as it has been for quite a while, and I've just never found a pattern that I think really serves this yarn well. So I want to try and find something this year that I can say, yeah, this is the pattern I'm making with this yarn, so that I know that it has a purpose, because it feels like a shame to just have it sitting with nothing to do. And it's lovely and soft. I think to wear it would be really nice, but I just haven't got that sort of inspiration yet. So let me know if you have any ideas, because so far I'm kind of stumped. So I am now out of sweater quantities and into my kind of odds and ends. So these are things that I might have a ball or two sitting about that I haven't got an idea for, and I don't just want to make like 5 hats. But they're all really nice yarns that I want to do justice, so if you have any ideas for any of these, please do fire them my way. But the first is one that you will recognise if you've watched any of my other videos, because I just finished a sweater using this yarn held together with the Drops Kid Silk Merino. So this is a fingering weight yarn. It's a kind of loosely spun 4-ply, I would say, and it's a merino silk blend. So I'm kind of stumped on what to use it for when I only have one ball. I think it's about 400 meters, I could be wrong. Yeah, it is 400 meters, so I'm not entirely sure what to do with that small an amount of fingering weight yarn. I guess I could do like your socks or fingerless gloves or whatever, but I don't know. It feels, I really love this yarn and I don't want it to wear quickly, and I feel like it would if it was held by itself or something like that. But then if you have a thicker yarn, usually 400 meters won't get you very far, so I don't know if holding it together with something would fix that problem. I know that I could plug it into Ravelry. My hot take is that I'm not a huge fan of Ravelry, to be honest. I track my knitting on the Knit and Note app, which I think is quite new still, and I don't see a lot of people talking about, but I absolutely love it. Like, it holds all my patterns for me just as PDFs. I can keep the pattern next to me on the project, so I can swipe between like tracking it and looking at the pattern. I just find it really user friendly, whereas Ravelry I think is kind of outdated in a lot of ways. The only problem that I had with Knit and Note is that you can't look at patterns on it, but they have started doing that now, so I think it's one of those things that's really going to improve as it goes, and it's already great, so would highly recommend that app if you haven't tried it before. But Ravelry I just find quite hard to use and not very personalised and a little bit archaic, to be honest, so I don't tend to gravitate towards that. Usually I will go by other knitters' YouTube videos or Instagram and things like that to find patterns. But then when you're looking for something quite specific, like a pattern for a specific yarn, it doesn't tend to come up, so I guess maybe I have to give Ravelry another go. But yeah, again, if you have any ideas, fire them my way. So based on what I was just talking about, you can probably guess what the next kind of odds and ends thing I have is, but it is pretty much an entire skein of Drops Kid Silk Mohair. I ran out when I had about this much of the cuff to do. Like, I had so little left, but not enough that I could get away with taking yarn from anywhere else, so I have almost an entire skein to use for something, and I've got no idea what I can use just one skein of mohair for. Yeah, it feels like a lot of yarn to have sitting about, but I can't think of something I can use just this much for. But it feels kind of counterproductive to buy more yarn to get this used up, because I'm trying to destash it and that would involve buying more, which is the opposite of destashing. So I don't really know what to do with this. I guess it's maybe another one of those things I have to jump on Ravelry for. But yeah, this is another one of those things sitting in my stash kind of staring at me every time I go into that box, because it's such a stupid amount of yarn to have had to buy and I've got no idea what to make with it. So the next yarn I have to talk about is balled up already, even though it came in a hank, because I got a yarn winder in Swift for Christmas one year and could not help myself but immediately break it out to use. So this has been balled up even though it doesn't have a purpose yet. So it was a kind of accidental purchase, I'm not gonna lie. I was getting some yarn for another project, had to buy more, accidentally bought more of this instead, and so now I have it sitting around. So it is the colour Shore from NervusFibre, again based in Glasgow, and it is 225 metres for 100 grams, so it's a pretty true DK, I would say. I think this would be a lovely colour for some sort of fingerless gloves or something, just because it's the sort of colour that I don't think would show dirt very quickly, and living in Scotland when it's cold it's usually wet, which means things get dirty, so I think that might be what this goes towards. So I've also got a terrazzo neck that I made in some yarn from NervusFibre that has some pretty similar tones in it, so I think having some fingerless gloves that sort of go with that, sort of don't, would be kind of cool. And the last thing in my stash is also from NervusFibre. In case you couldn't tell, I'm kind of a fan. I love that she's based in Scotland, and I love the kind of colourways that she tends to come out with. They're usually quite moody, and her tonals are lovely and deep, but she has some really cool, fun colourways as well, like the ones I showed earlier. So she's just got a lot of range, and I tend to like quite a lot of it. So the last one I have is a skein and a little bit more of the colour Shroom. This is the Devonia DK, so it's a little bit more coarse than just her regular DK, but I do find it to be very warm, and so I think I might make a hat with this, especially because I've got a bit more than a skein. I might be lucky and be able to make a pom-pom out of it or something, but I'm not sure entirely what pattern I want to go for. I have a couple of petite knit patterns, which probably comes as no surprise, so I could use one of them. I've never made myself an Oslo hat before, which kind of feels like a shame. I've made them for a couple other people as gifts, so maybe I could try and finagle a way to make those out of a DK yarn, or I could find another pattern and give that a go that's made for DK. I haven't quite decided, but a hat kind of feels like the way to go for something that's this warm, but I don't think would be lovely next to skin. I have a fringe that kind of covers my forehead when I'm wearing a hat, so I don't have to worry about it being itchy on my forehead, which is nice. So yeah, I think a nice cozy hat would work really well with this, and would also match the terrazzo neck I mentioned, so I would have kind of a matching set that doesn't fully match, which is kind of my vibe. I feel like when it gets too matchy then it gets a little bit boring, so the fact that there would be a couple of different tones might make it quite cool. So those are all of the yarns in my stash at the minute. I do have kind of odds and ends of other things, but not enough to sort of talk about. Like, there's no point in bringing out half balls of things to talk about because there's not really very much to say. I think I need to find myself a scrappy project for the rest of it, like when I've got a little bit of a skein of sock yarn left and stuff like that. Hopefully I'll find a purpose for those. I do have a sort of scrappy scarf on the go, but that's generally made with chunky or DK, and I have a lot of sock yarn that has no purpose, so I'll find something for that, I'm sure. But yeah, those are all of the kind of decent quantities of yarn I would say that I have. I know it's not a huge stash compared to a lot of people, but I like to keep it to a point where pretty much everything has a purpose, or it would be easy to find a purpose for. So I don't like to have a huge stash. I find that kind of just grates on me a little bit, to have it taking up a lot of space or costing a lot of money and kind of going nowhere, so it feels like a good amount for me. And obviously that's not including the stuff that I have that's currently being used for projects, so I have a couple other skeins on the go for that, like all of the yarn for my temperature blanket, the yarn I'm using for my cardigan, and the pair of socks I'm currently working on, so it feels like plenty for me. I wouldn't like to have an overwhelming stash, so I'm quite happy with that amount. So yeah, that's my flash my stash video. I hope that maybe I've been able to mention some patterns for yarns that I've got that would inspire you to make that with yours, or maybe if I'm lucky you'll have some ideas for what I can use my yarn for. There's not actually as many as I thought that don't have purposes, which is nice. I'm not the kind of person that likes to keep sweaters quantities on hand for no reason, for example. I know a lot of people like to have them so that if they, inspiration hits, they can just start making immediately. But I sometimes find that if I have yarn sitting that doesn't have a purpose, I sort of get overwhelmed by all the things that I could use it for, and then when I want to make something, then I will just buy some yarn specifically for the purpose of the thing that I want to make. So I just don't like to kind of take my chances with that kind of thing. I think buying specifically for patterns as I want to make them works best for me. So that's what's in my stash at the minute. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in a couple of weeks for a proper update on my works in progress and some finished objects. Bye bye!